It surprised everybody. As 83-year-old Janice Combs, the mom of Sean Diddy Combs, walked slowly to the witness stand, the whole courtroom got super quiet. Even though Diddy had stayed calm all through the trial, now he looked pretty nervous. His lawyers looked at each other with worried faces. The people trying to prove Diddy did wrong sat up straighter. This was going to change everything. If this story is new to you, don't forget to tap that like button and follow us. We'll keep you updated on big cases like this.
We always check our facts and tell the full story. No one expected Diddy's mom to speak in court. Everyone already felt the tension after what had happened earlier that day. As she carefully walked to the front and got ready to promise to tell the truth, every eye in the room was on the elderly lady.
People gasped from the audience seats. Even the judge looked shocked. Janice Combs had always stood beside her son all through his music career. But now she was about to speak under oath. Nobody saw this coming. No announcement had been made before today. Up until now, Diddy had looked confident, waving to fans and chatting with his lawyers. But something had definitely changed. Maybe it was seeing his mom, who had always stood up for him, getting ready to speak against him in court. Maybe he knew his closest friend no longer had his back. Maybe he realized the plan he had for his trial wasn't going to work. Diddy stopped acting. He didn't look like a celebrity anymore. Now he just looked like a son, watching his mother speak honestly. No one was ready for what Janice Combs was about to say when she started talking. What she shared about her private talks with Diddy, her growing worries over time, and the truth she could not hide anymore, shocked more than just the court. This was a sad moment where a mom had to face the real truth about her son. The first day of the trial didn't feel any different from the others. People spoke quietly. Reporters sat in their assigned spots, whispering about their ideas. Lawyers spoke softly to each other, planning the day. The prosecutor suddenly said, "The United States calls Janice Combs," and the whole room changed. It was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. Some people thought calling her was a desperate move, while others thought it was a big mistake. Janice Combs didn't look sloppy for her age. Her strong eyes showed she was serious as she walked to the stand. Diddy was reading some papers with his lawyers, but when he looked up and saw her, he looked shocked. Even the judge lifted an eyebrow, and Diddy's face lost all its color. His fingers stopped flipping through the sheets in front of him. Without looking at anyone, Janice Combs took her seat in the witness chair. Even though her son was looking heartbroken and confused, she didn't look at him much. The lawyer said, "Mrs. Combs, thank you for coming. I know this must be..." Janice just nodded calmly, showing she was staying strong through it. The judge said she could go ahead. That changed everything in the case. Why? Because no one had ever heard this story before. Not in the news, not in gossip. These weren't just rumors from people who had once worked with Diddy. She was the woman who raised him, cheered for him, and protected him for so long. This was her own story. Diddy's lawyer said her words might be unfair, and tried to stop her, using what's called family privilege. But the other lawyer said that adult children and parents don't have that kind of protection if it's about breaking the law. After a short chat, the judge let her continue. The courtroom stayed completely silent. Reporters just stared at their screens but weren't typing anything. Even the people drawing pictures for the news had stopped sketching. The lawyers didn't show any feelings on their faces, but Diddy's family members in the crowd looked shocked and confused. Janice Combs fixed her glasses and looked right at the prosecutor. She said, "I'm here to talk about talks I had with my son and some things I saw that worried me. I'm here because I think telling the truth is really important even though it hurts." People in the room began whispering. Diddy tugged on his lawyer's sleeve to stop him from saying anything. It was like he knew what was coming and was ready for it. Since she was older, and this was hard, the prosecutor was gentle with her. He asked, "Mrs. Combs, can you tell us about your relationship with your son?" Even though it was tough, Janice took a deep breath and started talking. What she said would completely change one of the biggest trials in years. "I raised Sean alone after his dad died when he was a kid," she said. "I worked lots of jobs to support him and give him chances I never had. I wanted him to be strong and to succeed. And he did even more than I ever dreamed." As she spoke, she smiled a little, remembering how proud she was watching him go from music intern to superstar. She began to soften as she thought about him as a young man, filled with big dreams. She said, "Sean always had charm and could lead others. Even as a little kid, he could convince anyone to do anything." She looked at the jury and said it with a tiny smile. "But something changed along the way," she said. "He got rich and famous so fast. People around him always said yes. Everyone wanted a piece of him. They treated him like rules didn't matter. Then I saw him begin to believe that too." The prosecutor gently guided her into more memories about Diddy's life in the early 2000s. She started describing things that made her worry: how he liked to control people, how he would get super angry if challenged, and how he didn't respect people's space. "At first I blamed his stress," she said, "but then I started noticing stuff at his homes. I saw young women who looked spaced out, staff who looked scared. Some places I wasn't allowed to enter." One visit in 2008 to his Miami house really stuck with her. "I showed up without telling anyone," she said, which made some people nervously chuckle. "Moms can do that." There had been a party the night before. People were cleaning up, but it felt strange, not like normal. They were picking up phones from rooms. One young girl was crying while a guard took her outside. Because she hadn't warned him she was coming, Diddy was very angry when he saw her. The prosecutor showed her a photo and asked if she knew the place. She looked at it and said, "Yes, that's the pool house at his LA home." He called it a studio in 2010, but he kept it secret. "He never let me go in." That was weird, because I used to go anywhere in his homes. She talked about how her concerns grew and how she tried talking to her son. She said, seriously, "That's what moms do." I asked him questions, but he brushed me off. He said I just didn't understand the music business. He told me everything was agreed to. It was just how life worked in his world. The prosecutor asked, "Did you ever talk about the rumors women said about him?" Janice nodded slowly. "Yes. Around 2017, when women publicly said things, I called him right away. Any mom would. I asked him if it was true. He told me the women were lying and just wanted money. He said this happened to all rich men." She stopped, looking worn out. "I believed him. I really wanted to believe him. He's my son." The lawyer then asked, "Did anything happen to make you stop believing him?" She nodded again, her voice quieter. "In late 2023, when Cassie sued him, I asked him again. We were alone in his New York place. I told him I needed to know the truth, not what the lawyers wanted him to say. Just the truth between a mom and son." The entire courtroom got silent again. He looked tired that day. His mask slipped a little. "He didn't tell me everything, but he said something I'll never forget." She said, "He told me, 'Mom, you don't build what I built by following the rules. Sometimes people get hurt. That's just business.'" For the first time, her voice shook. "That's not how I raised him. That's not okay." Diddy stayed very still, just staring at the table. His lawyers were whispering quickly and writing notes. But Diddy seemed lost in his mom's words. Janice went on, saying in early 2024, she got even more worried after seeing a video of Diddy. She said, "The Sean in that video wasn't a stranger. That's what really hurt." She shared that the more she listened to the stories about her son, the more she realized they kept happening. She mentioned seeing papers at his home with names of women and notes like "handled" or "problem" beside them. When she asked, he took the list and said it was just business. But she said, "His eyes told me he was hiding something, a mother knows." Then the prosecutor showed her another paper and asked, "Mrs. Combs, do you know what this page is?" She looked carefully and nodded. "Yes, these are notes I started writing down." After that talk, I began writing what I saw, what we talked about, what worried me. I had to. I thought my love for him was stopping me from seeing clearly. But once I wrote it down, I saw a pattern, and I was scared. For the first time, Diddy looked at his mom. Their eyes met, and told a quiet story of sadness, pain, and maybe understanding. Then she turned back to the lawyer, speaking with strength. "I still love my son. That won't change, but I can't pretend anymore. I won't stay quiet. Too many people are hurt." The lawyer asked gently, "Mrs. Combs, can you tell us about one talk you had with your son this April, after he got arrested, before the trial?" She got ready in her seat, like she knew this was going to be the hardest part. "Yes, I visited him in jail. It was just the two of us, in a private room. They made a special arrangement because of who he is. I told him I needed the full truth before I could say anything in public again. I said, 'Sean, I love you no matter what, but I need to know what I'm defending.' Then she said the room went totally still. He didn't speak for a while. Then he said, 'The truth is, I made a world where I was the one in charge. People either went along or got pushed out. Was it always right? No. Did people get hurt? Yes. But that's how power works, Mom. That's how it's always worked.'" She paused to think before going on. I asked him about specific things: parties, videos, drugs, the threats. The lawyer asked, "And did he say it wasn't true?" She answered, "No. He said it was complicated. He said it all started with people agreeing. Nobody was forced. But once you're in, it gets confusing. Some change their minds later, but by then they already got money and fame." Even while she spoke, her hands began shaking a little. I told him that getting someone to agree because they're scared or drunk or feel trapped isn't real agreement. And all he said back was, "That's not how it works in my world." The defense lawyers looked more and more nervous. Diddy finally looked at his mom again as his lead lawyer passed him a note. The lawyer carefully asked, "Did he ever say the exact words that show he did the crimes he's accused of?" He said, "The system I made worked for a long time. Everyone got something from it. The problems came when they stopped playing by the rules." She looked straight at the jury now. "I taught my son to be responsible, to do what's right. But when he told me that, I knew something was very wrong. He didn't see people as people anymore, just as game pieces he moved around." After that, she wrote a letter to her son, which the lawyer showed in court. In that letter, she said she loved him no matter what, but she also told him she couldn't support his actions anymore. The lawyer asked, "Did he reply to your letter?" "Yes," she said. "He called. He was angry at first, then he sounded like he was begging. He said I didn't understand what he was risking, that his whole life was in danger. I told him that's exactly why I have to tell the truth, because other people's lives matter too, not just yours." Then she was asked why she chose to speak in court. She took a long breath. "Because truth matters. Because being responsible matters. I raised my son to be better than this, because real love, mother's love, means helping your child face their mistakes to grow, not hiding the truth and letting them turn into someone worse." She turned toward Diddy again, this time with very serious eyes. "I'm here because I love my son enough to be honest, even when it hurts. I'm here for the women who were hurt. Someone needs to say their pain matters. And I'm here to show Sean no matter how rich or famous he is, he still has to be a decent person. Something inside Diddy seemed to break. His shoulders dropped. For the first time since the trial started, he didn't act confident. He looked like a son who had just heard his mother say she was disappointed. The lawyer thanked Janice Combs, and she went back to sit down. When Diddy's lawyer asked her questions later, he was very gentle and respectful. He just tried to show that she hadn't actually seen the things he was accused of. She had just heard about them. She didn't get upset. She admitted that was true, but she stayed firm in everything else. She knew what her son had become, that he told her things in private that showed what he'd really done. At the very end, she looked at him once more before leaving the witness chair. There were no words, but her eyes showed a mom who still cares, but was sad and hoping he would do better someday. She walked past the defense table with her head held high and left the courtroom. Diddy watched her go, and from the look on his face it seemed her words had hit him harder than anything else. Between mom and son, only the painful truth remained. Next came Dr. Margaret Chen, who studies family feelings and famous people. The lawyer asked her to explain why in big trials with rich or famous people, family members usually stay quiet or support them, no matter what. But for a mom to testify like that changes everything. It means she reached a big moment inside where love and truth couldn't mix anymore. Her slow, step-by-step discovery makes her very believable. Dr. Chen explained how Janice saw her son ignore warnings and make excuses using his fame. And the lawyer asked more about that behavior. She said, "Stars with lots of money and power often get surrounded by people who protect them too much. But a mom, that's someone who knew them before all the fame. She can sometimes see what others cannot." Then she talked about how what Diddy told his mother showed how his mind worked after years of thinking he was untouchable.